Ready to start? Sorry, thank you. That's great. All right, we're going to start our work session of the Board of Education. And my presence report, if you don't mind, I'd like to defer that to the regular meeting because I have some things I'd like to highlight. So we'll go right to the superintendent's report. Ms. Weldon?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Nice to see everybody. We have the next item, Marianne, if you could bring that up. We're sharing a Monmouth University polling project that we did earlier this school year. The Ocean Township High School collaborated with Monmouth University students on a polling project. We were contacted, and this was arranged some time ago. A connection was made between the Monmouth University class run by Professor Patrick Murray to use Ocean Township High School as a client. And it was really for the Monmouth University students to have the experience of interviewing a client and developing a survey and then putting that information out, collecting back the feedback, and then presenting it back to us as the client. Dr. Stefankowitz and Mrs. Kazuba really led much of that coordination with Monmouth University. And then after the presentation to us, there was a follow-up activity where Professor Murray came to our high school and served as a guest speaker in our statistics class. And our students had that opportunity. So we are just sharing here, and Marianne, if you could slide through here, we're just sharing their presentation so that you could see some of the feedback that we did receive. There were about 135 parents, I believe, that responded. Yeah, you see there. And Mrs. Kazuba is taking all of the feedback and incorporating that into some of the offerings that we have and some of the outreach that we do to our 7th and 8th graders, all in an effort to improve our offerings to our high school students. So it's very interesting. If you could just slide through, Marianne, to the next slide. This really was their presentation, so I don't want to present it for them, but you can see some of the information we received through that process. Okay. And anything else I have, I will save for the regular meeting as well. I think there are questions here. Dr. Beal?
Yes, so the 135, above it, it mentions the attempt to contact grades 6 through 9. So was the survey for 6 through 9 or it was pre-K through 12?
No, it was only parents 6 through 9, and we were assessing either their intent or their decision to choose Ocean Township High School and some of the thinking behind their decisions.
Okay, so it's about a 15% response rate?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it was probably close to that.
Okay.
Ms. Hayes?
600 students or so.
You know, on all parents got the email, or was it a select sampling? I mean, I'm a 7th grade parent. I didn't get it, but I could have missed it.
I believe it went out through Web Backpack repeatedly to those parents, to those grade level.
Oh, this is
parents.
the same. Do we have a date of the actual survey? Like, was it?
When did
I
we?
can find it later. But
Okay.
Okay. Then if it was in Web Backpack, then I thought it was like you are getting this email of a certain person.
It was and Genesis
Okay.
emails.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I did get it.
Any other questions? We'll move to the school business administrator's report. Mr. Cass?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were not going to go over every slide.
No.
She's gonna go over it later.
Okay.
Yes.
No, that's fine.
Mr. Cass?
Just a quick buildings and grounds update. The fire escape project was supposed to start today. It was delayed because of the weather. We will be starting on Monday, July 31st. I spoke with our director of buildings and grounds. We feel confident that it will happen. Update on the curtain wall. We had some masonry work done that's been completed. They started some preliminary work on the roof. They've had some people out there. So we feel pretty confident that they're on schedule, that the schedule that we previously discussed. X8, our 22-23 X8 award came out. We received 1.3 million, which is a slight increase from last year's award. I want to thank Ms. Hanson for her guidance on it and working with my team, and also for her team for helping us so much, as well as the principals and my team for working so hard to make sure we got it done in a timely and accurate manner. And one final announcement, our new BA, Mr. Hastings, will officially be joining us on August 1st. We're all very excited about that. And I personally feel we're going to be in good hands with him. I'd also just like to thank Ms. Weldon and Dr. Stefankowitz, as well as the board, for giving me the chance to serve as your interim. It's been a very positive experience for me, and I look forward to continuing to serve you in my usual role.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
The same way.
I think, can I make the comment, please?
Yes,
Oh, no, very nice job. Congratulations, you really stepped in, did some really nice things and kept you cool and did some really good things. So congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you, Elliot. We'll now move to the first of our public comment sessions. This is open to public comment on agenda items only. Would anyone from the public like to comment on any agenda item at this time? Yes, please go to the podium. And I believe if there's a piece of paper there, Mr. Stoniker, is there? Can you please sign your name? Because sometimes they can't hear very well, and they want to be sure to get your spelling correct.
Okay, my name is David Stoniker, live in Wayside. I have a question relating to the new school threat assessment team policy. Is the person being accused of the threat taken out of the school community so they cannot act on that threat while under investigation?
Is the person,
Making,
Who's accused of threatening somebody or the school? Are they taken out of the school community, like out of school? I know like each school is different, like high school would have out of school suspension, or like the younger, the elementary schools probably have a different policy. Are they taken out of the
right,
community?
there's different steps to the procedure, so it would depend on the nature of the threat.
Okay,
In some cases, yes.
okay. That's what I was just wondering, just in case they can't act on it, because I know reading through the policy, there's like a process on how it goes through. So I was just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Conway, is there anyone in the queue who would like to make a comment on agenda items?
No, Madam President, there are no commenters.
Thank you. Let's go to the presentation of minutes. Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you. This is the reading to approval of the meeting minutes from the session on July 11th. Any comments or questions?
Ms. Beal.
Under the executive session, it says Mr. Cass reported on HIB alleged incidents. I believe that was the superintendent.
That's a typo. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Since I was going in and out of Wi-Fi, so I apologize, but I believe Superintendent Weldon went over the $500,000 grant in her superintendent report at the last meeting. So I didn't see that mentioned in the minutes. And that was one of my questions I emailed in advance. Is there a reason to put it in so that it can be searchable in the future, or is it okay that we left out the mentioning of this grant since it was a decent sized discussion?
I think,
I mean, we can,
we briefly mentioned it because we have not received the funding yet, and that there would be more to come once we did receive the money, and we could talk specifically about how we're going to use it.
So no procedural, like no one's going to be like, you didn't write in that you didn't talk about this grant.
I think when we receive it, we will certainly
And then put it
note
in.
that we have received these funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. McCarthy, then we can vote on the
No, not in
in regular. Okay. Personnel, we went over already. Financial management
That's
report. Case.
me. We have 9.1 through 9.9 discussion.
Are there any comments or questions or concerns from any board members?
I did ask for the Biata home healthcare, what our tally was last year.
yeah.
You're asking how much we spend for our disabled students?
No, I'm asking how much we spent on Beata last year.
Right, to provide nursing care, correct?
Yes, for the Bayonne
That
contract.
figure? Thank you, Mr. Kerr.
Yeah, last year it was 13,000, the year before it was 12, and I believe we're planning on using them in the same capacity this year, so they provide good nursing coverage for us.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Anything else? Okay. Instruction, education, and student activities, Dr. Beal?
Any discussion regarding 10.1 through 10.11?
Yes?
For the agenda item on Fairleigh Dickinson, is that in addition to the Georgian Core University or is that in place?
Yes,
It's
in
in
addition, we have a number of memorandum of agreements with other higher ed institutions for our Spartan schools and for other programs at the high school. This is just another one that Mrs. Kazuba has arranged for to add for our students.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
That's excellent.
Can we get any more information on that? Like how many classes might be available to our students?
It is on the attachment. And I believe it's the last page. It goes over the list of courses that we're going to make available. I don't have it right in front of me. See if I can get that
I
attachment.
know it's just, isn't it under executive though? So
Oh,
The public
it's
will only know-
not in regular. In regular, it's not.
okay, thank you.
No problem.
Not for my benefit, but for the public's benefit.
It's there for the
No,
public in regular.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Um,
Ms. Tortorella.
10.5, that's just the emergency virtual or remote instruction. That's
Yes.
just the standard.
Every year, we have to, I don't know for how long, but we are still asked at this year to update our both the emergency virtual remote learning plan and the safe return to school plan, which both have to do with, it came out of the pandemic. We have reviewed and updated our process there, and we will submit those to the state after this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Very good. Negotiations.
The Board of Education Administration will discuss a sidebar agreement with the Township of Ocean Education Association as attached.
Did that upstairs.
Ms. Walden?
Okay.
We did that in exec.
Right. Our policy.
All right, so two items up for discussion tonight. The first 12.1, this is the second reading of the school threat assessment team summary. The second 12.2, I believe is the first reading of
It is.
of the policy. Thank you, Mrs. Walton. To add to that and just give a brief summary, this topic of tuition for special education students was discussed at the previous meeting, was reviewed by the administration and determined that this was something that we could work towards. So this policy is being presented for first review and discussion in order to execute that opportunity. Any questions or comments, please direct them to Mrs. Weldon.
I can add on to that, after I believe Mrs. McGovern brought it up in old business or new business last week or last meeting. And we already believe that this was a direction that we should head and make some opportunities available to other students to pay tuition to come to our school district. So in collaboration with Mrs. Hanson, we took our existing policy and made some minor revisions to allow for more access to our district for parent pay tuition students. And we think that we have here something that will work well. And so we have it up for first reading.
And to just like summarize it more Barney style, right? The initial policy of the district was that we did not offer the opportunity for special education student parents out of district to pay tuition to come into district. Now we're looking to make that more accessible. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for looking at that more.
Yeah, appreciate it. That was very good. Public relations, Ms. Tortorella.
Sorry, I had a question.
States has questions.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Are we gonna go over the threat assessment teams a little bit more in regular, or is now the time to ask the question?
You could ask questions.
So my concern is just equity with these threat assessment teams. And I know the state hasn't really come up with parameters since it's new to New Jersey, like Virginia and Florida have already had them. I don't know if you probably saw the Ed Week article on threat assessments this week. I'm a little concerned about disciplinary actions taken after threat assessments. I just want to make sure there's an equity balance in everything. And like, how are we going to address equity, or have we, I mean, we're obviously not there yet. So will that be part of the plans in this threat assessment teams? And then will there also be a reporting to the school board? I didn't see that in the policy, like, you know, every quarter you guys tell us the threat assessment teams updates, how many were found or discovered. So I guess that's two questions.
Is that something the board would want to vote on, make a motion that they want?
Well, I think
Report.
obviously if there was any
Mm.
credible threat against the school in any way,
Mhm.
as a board member, you would be informed and notified fairly timely to the event. But if you're asking as a practice in just over the course of a year, how many assessments, things like that, I think
Yes.
that that would be some sort of a report that we would put together. We haven't given much thought to what that would look like just yet, as we are still in the process of the
Mhm.
training and the building of our teams, and then the rollout to our schools this coming September. And we have the policy up, and I'm not sure if you could hear me at the last meeting. What I had said about this policy was that the state hasn't put out all of the parameters just yet.
Yeah.
However, a policy does need to be in place for September 1. So our policy making vendor, Strauss Esme, did put out a draft policy that I have recommended we approve. And when we get the new updates from the state, whatever those may be, they may address some of your questions. We would then
They might
approve that version of the
Okay.
policy as well. So I believe we're in a little bit of a more to come place. However, we are moving forward in all of our planning and preparing for September and even before.
Okay, thank you.
I said that last week. Yeah, I can. All right. No further questions? We'll move to PR. Ms. Tortorella?
Is there any discussion on the donation of the backpacks and supplies from the St. George Greek Orthodox Church?
Thank you.
Just a bit. Yeah.
I'm not gonna try to say that other word.
The love talk. I know.
How do you say it?
I love the horse.
Like that.
So.
It is a wonderful thing, and I believe we will do a thank you, but I do believe we also do a formal board thank you once we've accepted.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful thing.
It is. Technology. Mr. Weinstein, anything to report?
I don't think there's anything on that.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. Move to old business. Yes, Ms. McGovern.
I know I'm going to sort of sound like a broken record, and tonight is really not an indication of what I'm speaking to, but I would like to speak to having this part of the meeting down here. On normal school time of the year nights, I find that when we're doing this work meeting and we get to the end of it, and usually we're not 15 minutes ahead, as you all know. You have a lot of students, a lot of parents, a lot of sports teams that we're honoring that evening walking into the room as we're still trying to conduct business. I know that the reason that we moved down here was because of the ADA compliance. And while I appreciate that, I think that sometimes we end up rushing through the end of the meeting because we can't frankly hear each other half the time when there's people walking in. Plus people can't say hello to each other that maybe want to say hello to each other. So I would like to revisit, if we can, speaking with Ms. Weldon, who can maybe speak with the technology team to see if there's a way, if we stayed upstairs for the workshop just on this night that we do the regular meeting, putting back, now that Ms. Weldon has cleaned out that office, there's that big space, maybe putting back, 8 chairs during that meeting or something. So if people do want to come upstairs, they can, but also broadcasting it down here so that while we're working upstairs, people that want to be here could still be in the audience, observing what we're doing upstairs. So if they can only make it to this room, they will still be able to see it. Again, like I said, we don't have people walking in, and Melissa, forgive me, but Mrs. Lepesnik walked in at, 20 of. Now we know, so now in a couple more minutes, somebody else is going to walk in and people are going to walk in, and we're not usually at this point.
It's not a bad idea.
So that's the one thing. The second thing that I wanted to about these meetings as well.
Here comes Mr. Amato.
Yeah, see, that's what's amazing. So it's just, like people coming in and they're not trying to interrupt, but it's frankly what's happening. So the other part is when we talk about the public comments on this night, we go through, we have 4 public comment sessions on this evening. We have an agenda, a regular, an agenda, and a regular. And at one point during COVID, we had dropped, during the workshop meeting, we had dropped the second public comment during the workshop meeting, because you're having that like all-encompassing comment for the end, when you're going to frankly also have more people watching. You need to keep the first one because it's about agenda, and there could be people with information about what's on the agenda for what will happen with our votes. So, I mean, you are here, so I don't know if there's an appetite to drop that second public comment just in the workshop, and B, if, I mean, I know we've done it in the past. I don't know if it's legal. I mean, we're rolling from one meeting to the next. So I would think it would be okay keeping the 2 agenda comments, because again, some people don't log on until 8 o'clock and don't have a comment about this part of the meeting, but have a comment for the second. So the 2 things I'm proposing are moving the workshop upstairs, as long as we can get the technology to be able to broadcast it down here, you know, so if people are here, and putting chairs up there. And number 2, dropping the second public comment during the workshop meeting. So those are my 2. And I'm, you know, obviously I understand why we moved down here, but when we have kids and stuff, it gets a little noisy in here when we're trying to conduct business.
My only comment about dropping that second one is that sometimes you say people are on later, but sometimes people have to sit through an hour and a half in order to make a comment on anything. And I think that was one reason why we have public comment in the work session too. So I'm hesitant to drop that. As far as moving upstairs, I'm certainly amenable to that, but we need some discussion. Yes, Dr. Buell.
If I recall, there was a seasoned lady who had difficulty getting upstairs. So if it was projected, would they have the opportunity to, how would they speak if they don't bring a device?
So I guess we would have to
Although they can see it, they
right.
still cannot participate versus if they were in the room.
Right. I'm not sure if the microphone, because this room would be on, if the microphone would, and we had a different Zoom upstairs, that microphone probably would project it, but these are all questions for Mike Hall to see if we can even do it. If we could, that's what I'm saying. If we could get the technology to get it done so that it works the way it needs to work, that would be my caveat to saying to do it.
It would. Says.
I mean, I think everyone knows that of my push to have this downstairs for 2 years, this part of the meeting. While I appreciate the effort to at least have better technology and the screen up here, and I would even dare offer that we have a sign that says, do you know what's going on upstairs? So you can watch it here or you can go upstairs. Because I think we have come down here, but in the past, and people have been like, you've been upstairs? Well, I didn't know that. I didn't even know I could go up there.
Signs usually.
But if they come through here, they don't know. I just think the appearance of us being ensconced on the 3rd floor doesn't behoove the movement for transparency and open dialogue that we're moving for. And it's not ADA compliant to get up there. I realize there would be an accommodation to have somebody in here, but part of like the democratic process and trying to get people engaged, I think people would like to see here and, you know, be in a room with us.
I understand that, but I respectfully disagree that it's not being transparent when you have the exact same thing.
I'm not saying it's not transparent. No, I'm not saying that. I'm totally not saying it's not
You don't want to
transparent.
go back and forth, one at a time.
Yeah,
please.
but I just think for public discourse,
Can I suggest that we look into the technology aspect of it and
To see if it's
first of all,
available.
if we can do it, and if we can't do it, then we can remain where we are, but we should look into it.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, just to Amy's point, most of the people that are here on this night, when it's a regular meeting, are here to talk and be part of the regular meeting. They're not here to listen to the workshop, and we are still doing it via Zoom, right? And we are still
Hopefully.
being able to broadcast
Yeah.
here, so they're not here for anything more than the regular meeting.
Can I just,
yes, Amy.
and I would say to that point, most of them are here to celebrate each other.
Yes.
And when you're here, when we were here trying to conduct business during the retirement meeting, and we're basically saying you guys can't even hug each other, talk to each other, or do anything because we have business to do. It also feels a little bit less loving in the room when we're like, come in, please, Mr. Amato, find your seat and please be quiet while you're sitting, you know, like, and so I'll stop there.
All right, well, let's take the first approach, and that is it feasible to do it with technology? Yes.
May I just add that if we look into the technology, can we also look into whether or not these microphones can project actually into back there? Because I've heard people say in a busy room, they can't even hear us talking, because some of us are a little soft-spoken. So not just can this be done, but why don't we have us all like being mic'd for the back of the room as well?
All right, thank you. For new business. Yes,
I have old business.
oh, sorry.
Going back to the minutes, under financial management. It says Mrs. Tortorella clarified what the complaint is for and expressed her frustration. I believe the words that I used were disappointed and embarrassed, so I'd like the record to reflect that. Thank you.
And that was under old business.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We'll move to new business. Yes.
As part of being on the Monmouth County School Boards Association Executive Board, I got an email today that asked if this district would support being the host again for the 8th grade dialogue in March. And I said, well, coincidentally, we're meeting tonight, so I will ask. We don't need to make a decision.
Meeting.
She listening in her car watching it. I don't know, I don't think we need to answer today, but can we put that on some agenda or somebody's radar? The date for the 8th grade dialogue, I think it gave our district some nice exposure and brought 30 districts to TOIS. I don't know if Mr. Amato liked that night or if he thought or if it was a pain for our staff, but I think the staff like doing the cookies on that was an easy ask, and I will send you the email. I think it's the 6th or the 7th of March.
Okay, thank you.
Any other new business?
Do we have to present a resolution in new business today?
No, it's in the regular meeting.
Next meeting.
Wouldn't we want to have 2 readings of it tonight? Of said resolution as a point of procedure?
You don't have to.
You do 2 readings of policy.
It's our policy to generally have 2 readings.
For policy,
Conduct a work.
you're adopting or amending a policy that requires 2 readings. but
Okay.
As this is a regularly scheduled meeting, there's no requirement to have 2 readings of resolution.
Okay,
It can be walked on or added to the agenda.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We now move to the public comment session. Would anyone from the public like to comment on any item at this time? Mr. Stoniker? Again, if anyone goes to the microphone, if you sign your name there,
I read it twice.
the technology department. If you've already signed once, you don't need to sign again. Thank you.
I just have a question regarding financial stuff, so I guess that could be BA.
Probably.
Recently, the town property assessments were received by the residents. In some areas, the town taxes were increased. With the assumed increase of school funding, hopefully, how does the district allocate money to each school? I know that you have the budgets. Do the schools come with you with the budget and then you guys, and then you guys try to allocate the money equally? Is that how it goes, right? Correct?
Yes, each principal submits a budget that then comes together as a full district budget.
That's what I
So
thought.
it's a long process, but
That's I
That's
was
in
kind
a
of a
nutshell.
question that I was just thinking about that today. I have one more. With the current lawsuit between the board members, are the legal fees going to be posted publicly throughout the process? Like in your bills and your financial?
I'll answer that. So as a general proposition, all bills and claims are approved on a monthly basis when they are submitted by the Board of Education, and that in and of itself is a public record.
There would be
So there will be no separate distinct disclosure of it per se, but it will be to the extent that bills are submitted by the attorney representing board members, it will be part of the bill list, and any member of the public can, as always, submit an open request for any bill or claim submitted to the district.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Amy Apicelli. I live in Neptune.
Can you get closer to the mic just so the people at home can hear us? Okay.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amy Apicelli. I'm here tonight to discuss the 68-page complaint that's putting this district in jeopardy of more upcoming lawsuits. As much as I am disturbed that you're dragging my mother's good name with false information, I'm even more disgusted that you are intentionally attacking and harassing my husband again, including me this time. As a private citizen, why am I named in this complaint? Why isn't my full name redacted? This purposeful violation of my privacy needs to be addressed. Even more manipulative is how you, Ms. Tallarico, went out of your way to not name the son-in-law referenced 68 times, but felt it was necessary to put my full name along with a Googled hyperlink to my Long Branch teachers page in your complaint. Is my employment as a highly effective teacher for the last 13 years relevant to anything? Personal and family information have no business being discussed. Because of a comment made during a public session in April by Ms. Hayes, my husband consulted with his union and emailed the superintendent. He emailed that he wanted to be referred to as a professional staff member and not a son-in-law. His email was shared with the entire Board of Education. His career in Ocean began in 2008, long before he was a son-in-law. But with the ongoing pattern of petty, childish, and tantrum-like antics from two of the board members, we are here again with the same issue. This targeted and malicious pattern of behavior from these two individuals needs to stop. Ms. Tallarico, do you know that the fundraising booth at the Italian Festival this summer that the girls soccer program is volunteering at is in conjunction with the Ocean baseball and wrestling teams? Are you going to question the funds that the soccer teams receive because it is directly related to the son-in-law, as previous patterns have shown? How do you feel that it is valid to waste the taxpayers' money on this witch hunt? You and your complicit partner in this complaint, you need to be better. You need to be better as decent human beings, and you need to be better to the students of Ocean Township.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public like to make a statement? Yes, please. If you would write your name down.
My name is Debbie Kiss. I live in Wanmassa. I was a teacher here for 28 years. I am very upset at finding out that as a taxpayer and as a professional teacher, that my money is going to pay for lawyers for a petty, nonsense, ridiculous grievance. You are elected to do a job, and that is to help the education of our town children. The money and the time that this ridiculous grievance is taking away from that job, I am outraged. I find it a disgrace.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else from our audience? Yes, please go to the podium, write your name down.
My name is Jan McLaren. I am a resident of Ocean. And I would just also reiterate what she said, saying that I just don't understand how adults can behave this way and how they just can't be settled in a calm manner. And the fact that it has to use an attorney and that money is going to come out of the budget for our students is it's horrible. It just should never have happened. So basically, I'm sorry. I didn't even know if you could hear me.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Good evening. This is my first time.
Just give us your name. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, your name and.
Oh, yes, right. My name is Beverly McFarland. I've been a resident of Ocean Township for over 40 years. It's been come to my attention that there's a rift going on here. And I just wanted you to know, and I want my voice heard, that I'm very concerned that 2 board members have served a complaint against 2 others and are represented by an attorney, okay, by which is coming out of the budget, okay? I feel that money should not be coming out of the budget, and it could be better served for the students. I don't know what else to say, but I'm really appalled that this kind of conduct is being, for elected officials. It's appalling to me, and I'm very concerned. And I just want my voice known, my opinion.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else in the auditorium care to make a comment? Yes, Mr. Riley.
Good evening, Mike Riley, Oakhurst. I'm following suit with the other speakers. To be perfectly honest, I thought I was done coming up here, but here I am again. I have a varied position on this. I am speaking to the complaint that's been filed, but I'm speaking both as the former president of the Township of Ocean Education Association and as a taxpayer. As the president of the union, I have served on local committees, I've served on county committees, and I've served on state committees. And to be perfectly frank, I've never seen anything like this. This is an issue that I've never seen made public in any committee I've ever been on, any group I've ever worked with. Everything has always been held behind closed doors, and our dirty laundry stayed that way. We worked out our issues privately, and they got worked out. So when I heard that this had been, had reached the level that it has reached, I was completely dumbfounded. As an executive on the union, I saw this as a major issue within the committee, and it shook me as one who holds faith that our Board of Ed has the interest of the students and the staff in mind when this has nothing to do with students and staff whatsoever. These are grievances within your own group, and they should stay within your own group. It is a bad look publicly and professionally. As a taxpayer, it really makes me wonder about the trust I should put in this Board of Education, who holds so much power in where our taxes are going and how they're being spent. Because again, as people have said, we're hiring lawyers who are expensive and they're professional and they deserve every penny they get, but they shouldn't be these pennies. We should not be forwarding our money when it could be served elsewhere. Last year, Allison Connolly and I, the new president, and I had to sit with numerous staff members who were fired. We love to use the phrase "were released" or "let go." Let's call it what it is. They were fired. One of the biggest issues was a lack of funds. And here we are. We don't have now money to pay staff, but we do have money to pay for this, which I find incredibly ridiculous. All right. And frustrating. On top of everything else, one of the biggest issues that our board and our union have to settle every 3 years or so is an upcoming negotiation. And this is where we're going next year. Our team is already being created. We're being trained. We are being formulated. Yours already has been. I've been on 3 contracts. The first one I was on, I was part of the committee. I was not the lead negotiator, but that one was settled a year after it should have been. Since I took over, the 2 contracts following, we settled before June, before the end of June, which to a certain extent, if you follow contract negotiations through the counties, that's borderline unheard of. We don't get things done that quickly. There are always issues that need to be dealt with. And more often than not, there are personality differences. The last 2 contracts were settled with a union team that trusted each other, that trusted the board that they were working with. Didn't necessarily like every single one, either side, but we knew what we were there to do, and we got it done. And granted, the last night of the last contract, I believe we ended at around 2:00 or 3:00. I'm not really sure. It was very late, but we got it done. And I'm very uncertain going into this one. I promise I will be involved in this next contract. I will not necessarily be at the table, but I will be there advising. I know that the group we put together is going to be prepared, and I expect that the board group will be ready as well, because if not, it is not going to be anything but an influx of distrust, dishonor, and mayhem at the end. And I'm definitely hoping that it doesn't have to carry over into the following school year, because that's when things really get interesting in the very worst ways possible. So, this unfortunately stems from everything that's going on that we're all reading about on Ocean Cares and everywhere else, and at the library and at A&P, or, you know, the stores, and basically all over town. Had this not occurred, I would be watching this meeting at home, comfortable, but it is what it is. All right. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything you do, but this is not why we should be here. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
I very much appreciate Mike. He is the yin to my yang. Good evening. My name is Allison Connolly, and I reside in Wall Township. I will speak with you this evening in my capacity as president of the Township of Ocean Education Association. In the interest of both time and intent, I have prepared a statement for this evening. I had the opportunity to read the 68-page ethics complaint filed by Ms. Tallarico, which I obtained via Oprah. I found no smoking gun, no evidence of unethical behavior on the part of Ms. Gilman and Mr. Weinstein. What I do see, however, is a dysfunctional board struggling with procedural issues and missteps, plagued by factions and overinflated egos. And trust me, I would know. As the former president of the Wall Township Board of Education, I recognize dysfunction when I see it. But friends, you're supposed to keep those things behind the curtain. When you compel them to public, you make those you are elected to serve question your ability to do so. I am more concerned, however, by the fact that Ms. Tallarico chose to employ the nuclear option here, opting to very publicly attack her colleagues rather than seek mediation through the board attorney or assistance from your New Jersey School Boards Association representative, options that would have kept our district and your dirty laundry out of the limelight and cost significantly less money. Further, the timing concerns me. Had Mr. Clayton maintained his seat, would we find ourselves here? Is this complaint driven by political expediency rather than a genuine ethical concern? I also feel that Ms. Tallarico is preying on the general public, assuming they are uninformed or ignorant regarding board membership. With no frame of reference, her novella reads as scandalous. But to someone who has served, it just raises a number of questions. If conflicted votes were an issue, why weren't the necessary checks in place to prevent them, especially if there was a pattern? Were your board minutes blanketly approved at the next meeting, or were motions made to correct the votes? Would an Oprah request or similar inquiry reveal conversations with the board attorney or the board secretary regarding these issues in an attempt to correct them? Or were you just creating a dossier of gotcha moments to serve a different agenda? For those of you who might not know, the New Jersey School Boards Association tells us that the Board of Education has a dual role: to represent the concerns of the citizens, taxpayers, and parents to the school administrators, and to represent the needs of the students and school district to the citizens, taxpayers, and parents of the community. Further, the school board does not operate the district on a day-to-day basis. Rather, the school board sets the policies, goals, and objectives for the district, and it holds the superintendent responsible for implementing the policies and achieving the goals. I think particular emphasis should be placed on that last part, given the accusations made in the complaint. And while I refrain from comments regarding personnel, I think it's important to note that many of the issues outlined in the document have less to do with board ethics and more to do with people in other positions tangential to the board not being willing, able, or allowed to do their jobs. The necessary checks and balances that I enjoyed on my board, and there weren't many things I enjoyed on that board, seem to be missing on this one, and I can't help but wonder why. I'm deeply concerned by how this complaint will impact our district, as I think everybody should be.
It's embarrassing that some of our board members are unable to handle their differences civilly, and this complaint distracts from the real work that needs to be done, the work that deserves to be done. But more pragmatically, the information contained within this document absolutely opens our district up to further litigation, and at what expense? I also fear that the constant reference to Camp David threatens a vital source of income to our district. Camp David has been a steady partner since the 1980s, a collaboration which will add over $1 million to our coffers in the next 4 years. Money that our district desperately needs, but which may have been threatened by the actions and spurious claims of some board members. Selfishly, however, none of this concerns me as much as the potential implications this complaint holds for my members. I am in the process of putting together my negotiations team, and the board has one established. While I understand that the composite of that team might change with elections and reorganization, let me be exceptionally clear. It would be a supreme act of audacity for the board to think that the TOEA can and should negotiate with anyone who would publicly take aim at my members and who would, without a second thought, waste district and taxpayer dollars on something so frivolous and short-sighted. I sat with colleagues and friends who were non-renewed because of our district's budgetary constraints. Many of you on this dais have worked diligently with our state and local representatives to find more money for our district. How can anyone in good conscience claim that this complaint, which will potentially waste tens of thousands of dollars and possibly invite further litigation, is in the best interest of this board or the district? As you know, but some of you have clearly forgotten, the mission of our district is to meet the needs of all students with a proud tradition of academic excellence. I can't help but wonder how this complaint serves that mission, because serving this mission should be the primary goal in each and every board member. But this complaint does nothing to honor that mission. Rather, the precarious position that it puts the district in will do nothing more than undermine that mission. Those behind it should be ashamed of themselves and yield to the advice that so many have offered. Rescind and move on. Otherwise, you become obstructionists to the progress and growth our district, our schools, our staff, and our students need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conley.
I'm a teacher, I still think so.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the auditorium who would like to make a public comment?
I have a comment.
Excuse me.
I'm allowed to make a comment at any point during a board meeting. Am I not?
You would need to be recognized by the chair first. So just at least give the chair the opportunity to make the comment, rather, or to recognize you in terms of board member responses to public comment. However, before the board or any members respond to any public comment, I would, through the chair, respectfully ask for the opportunity to make a comment on behalf of the board.
Yes, but I know that there are people also in the queue that need to comment.
I'll wait until after that.
Okay.
Just as a point of procedure, it's not normally policy for the board to respond to comments from our public.
That's not in policy.
That's not what we do as a board.
And I'll address that as well.
Is there anyone, Ms. Conley, that would like to comment?
Yes, Madam President, Tiffany Fisher is in the queue.
Ms. Fisher? You can go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
We can hear you.
What is happening here? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I just wanted to state that I am actually very relieved that we as the public get to see and hear what's going on and where our tax money is going, because we usually don't. The Board of Ed usually goes upstairs in their little hole and, you know, closes the door, and we don't know anything about what's going on with anything. And when we comment anything, it's thank you for your comment and we move on. So also I wanted to know who is sitting next to Ms. Weldon, because nobody introduced him. Just saying. What's his name?
Mr. Taylor, would you like to
Sure.
address that?
So good evening, through the chair, board members, members of the public. I am Lester Taylor from the law firm of Florio, Carucci, Steinhardt, Capelli, Tipton, and Taylor, board counsel effective July 1, 2024. Thank you. 23.
I hope that answers your question. Is there,
Address the comment you made about how we.
yes, I would like to address that comment, Ms. Fisher, when you say that we go up in the little hole and we talk privately. Other than an executive session, which is not open to the public, all of our work sessions are recorded. The minutes are recorded. Any bills that we pay are public documents. We go through the finances each and every month. I don't really think it's fair for you to say that we are talking quietly and plotting in some way behind closed doors. If we speak in.
You want to go back upstairs and not be in front of the public? Did I not miss that?
No, if we
This is not ADA compliant, correct? And if somebody doesn't have an internet connection, how are they supposed to log on and watch what you guys are saying instead of being in the meeting?
So public comment, this in general pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act and board policy. The public has an opportunity, typically it's 3 minutes, to ask their questions, make their comments. It's not a conversation. So once the public or the member of the public has asked their questions and made their comments, your time is over. It is now the opportunity for the board president to speak. We would ask that you not interrupt any board member and or the board president. Since we're remote, arguably, I guess there's a way, or presumptively, there's a way to mute that person. We could go to that resort if we need to. But if you're present and you disrupt the meeting, you can be asked to leave. But let's just please keep it orderly in the sense of decorum. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Taylor. Is there anyone else in the queue who would like to speak or comment?
No, Madam President, there are no further commenters.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, you said you wanted to.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. And in no particular order, board bylaw 0164, conduct of board meetings, 0167, public participation in board meetings, as I just alluded to. In every public meeting, the public has a right, in school boards in particular, to have public comment. And so going to your question or comment earlier, it's purely a matter of governance for the board as to whether you have more than one public comment period, whether it's agenda items only, other items, work session, action meeting, et cetera. It's up to you. But that being said, as I indicated, the public does have a right to speak. But again, once they speak, the board has an opportunity to respond. While there's general protocol for the administration to respond if able, if matters are not personnel, privileged, confidential, to respond and or responses can be through the chair. While there's no specific prohibition to individual board members responding to any questions or comments from the public, the general blanket advice and disclaimer or cautionary tale is extended to all board members to be careful of responding on anything that might violate individual personnel, privacy rights, pending and or potential litigation matters, contract negotiations, safety, security, et cetera. And also understanding that individual comments may not necessarily be extended to on behalf of the entire board. It may be that person's private comments or opinions, I should say. There was a common theme or thread in public comment this evening regarding a pending ethics complaint. Just so the record is clear, an ethics complaint was filed by one board member against two other board members. Upon information and belief that one board member filed the complaint as a pro se individual without the advice or representation of counsel, if that board member who filed the complaint is represented by counsel, that would be at his or her own expense, not at taxpayer or board expense. The code of ethics, strike that, the board policy, as well as state statute affords and otherwise entitles the two board members who are the respondents, who are the accused in the code of ethics complaint or school ethics commission complaint, to what's called indemnification, i.e. payment of their legal fees. They are entitled to that as a matter of law. Based upon an individual filing that ethics complaint, it's my understanding that the attorney that has been designated to represent them is billed at the rate of about $300 per hour. And so that is something that by law, based upon this ethics complaint that was filed by this individual board member, the taxpayers of this town are obligated to pay on a monthly basis. The Board of Ed as an entity, the Ocean Township Board of Ed, is not a party to that lawsuit. And so none of these 6 other board members and or the 9 total as board members are a party to that lawsuit. And so it is and will be the advice of myself and my law firm to all board members, including those who are parties to the lawsuit, in their capacity as board members, not to comment at all regarding that pending litigation, A, because they're not part of it, but B, because it could, as alluded to by various board members or public, affect privacy rights, personnel rights, and or potential litigation in the future. So it's advised that no board member tonight or any other form or proceeding make any comments whatsoever about that lawsuit other than no comment upon the advice of counsel. The School Ethics Commission, which is the jurisdiction or forum where that complaint was filed, they generally have a confidentiality procedure that they follow, whereas they don't release complaints to the public until if and when an advisory opinion is issued and or a formal determination is made in that matter. As we all know, anybody can sue anybody for anything. It happens at the federal level, state level, administrative level, local level, grievances, respectfully, Madam President of the Union, et cetera. So anybody can sue anybody for anything. However, while the School Ethics Commission may have a confidentiality procedure, the Board of Ed is not privy to that. The Board of Ed is subject to what's called the Open Public Records Act. And so the Open Public Records Act deems just about any and all documents, electronic or hard copy, as a public record. And it is those records are accessible to the public upon request, unless they meet a half a dozen or so exceptions. So to the extent that the Board of Ed has a copy of a complaint in its possession, i.e. the administration has a copy of the complaint in its possession, and to my knowledge, a member of the press, the local media, submitted an open request to the Board of Ed for a copy of that. That public record is subject to disclosure, and there were certain redactions that were made, not necessarily to protect anyone's privacy from a personal standpoint, but to protect the board's legal rights and standing as an employer from the personnel privilege, et cetera, standpoint. And so to the extent that there were redactions made, they were in furtherance and in accordance with the law. The School Ethics Commission essentially has certain powers to censure, reprimand, suspend, or remove a board member. Those are the kind of four options that they have to deal with. And beyond that, I'll cease any further comments and further just reinforce and advise the board members not to make any comments whatsoever about this complaint. To the extent there are questions or requests for bills, those requests can be made preferably through the open request procedure, and the appropriate records can be produced upon request. To the extent that you can come on a bill list, that can be pointed out at a particular board meeting. But just also please note that if you do, you being whoever it is, ask for a copy of a legal bill, whether it be my bill or any other professional's bill, lawyer, accountant, engineer, et cetera, there may be certain redactions to that bill to protect privacy, personnel rights, attorney-client privilege, legal strategy, et cetera. So you may not get much more than the number itself. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the.
Second.
Second.